And we are back with another Final Destination video. After doing the Final Destination 4 video, then we did the Bloodlines review. It is time to do the rankings because I saw people in the comments saying that they wanted to see a rankings video, and I promised I would do one, so we are gonna do it. The biggest rule of this ranking is I am not ranking due to nostalgia. I will not be using any nostalgia factor into this ranking. So I won't be like, as a kid, this was my favorite because of this and that. I'm not doing any of that. I'm going strictly on how I feel about the movie itself, characters, and everything in between. This might be a very hot take rankings video. Also, will say, other than number 6 on this ranking, the other ones I would have at number 1. All of them could easily be number 1 on my list, but obviously since it's a ranking video, I can't just have number 6 and the rest just be number 1. I hope you guys are excited. You guys are probably going to click off this once we get past like the 5th one. You're probably going to be like, all right, I'm over with this video. But I appreciate you if you stay in and watch the rest of it. Many other videos coming out soon, so make sure you subscribe, like, and comment, and tell me your ranking. Now let's get into my Final Destination ranking. At number 6, we obviously have the Final Destination, also known as Final Destination 4. We've talked about this numerous times of how bad this movie is and how I feel about it. So I'm not going to go into too much detail because we've been through this before and you could just go check out the other videos. So I'll keep it as short as possible. The 3D aspect of it just didn't work. Everything felt so cartoonish. I already spoke about the premonition. I feel like it's the weakest premonition out of all 6 movies. A lot of people did comment saying that, oh, there is a lot of incidents that happen during NASCAR racings, and I'm just not informed about the whole situation and that there's so many of them, which is okay. I did not know that, but at the end of the day, NASCAR incidents isn't a common fear that a lot of people have. Like every other Final Destination, people have more of a common fear than NASCAR racing. But we don't have to talk about that anymore. The characters weren't really likable. They felt so bland. The only one that I really enjoyed was George, even though he had a really bad ending. Lori was okay as well. Everything else just felt so bland, and it's like, it's whatever. I do feel like the CGI was pretty awful too. And like I said, this is just 3D heavy, so they had to throw a whole bunch of shit at you, and it didn't work. Which is crazy because in the making of the movie, the behind the scenes looks way better than the final product, which is insane to me. Yeah, there's a lot that's very unlikable about Final Destination 4. So that's why it's number 6. At number 5, this is going to be a huge controversial take. Without using nostalgia, I put at number 5, Final Destination 3. I know you're about to click off the video, I know, but just hear me out. I think the opening scene is fantastic. I think the roller coaster premonition was awesome, but I will admit the CGI that they use, even though this is an early 2000s movie, I guess I'll give them a little pass on it, but the CGI during the roller coaster scene, some scenes just felt a little bit off and wanky, especially like the beginning, like the first rows of the roller coaster when they die. It's like, it's whatever, I guess. The people that really carry this movie pretty much is Mary Elizabeth Winstead. I mean, she's fantastic. And the guy from Luck of the Irish, I forgot his name. But those two were the standouts in this movie. And if you were to ask me, they're the best characters in all of the franchise. They're the strongest characters, the strongest actors. Obviously, Mary Elizabeth Winstead is fantastic. So overall, that part is fine of the movie. The rest of it, I mean, like I said, the CGI wasn't that great. I felt like Ian being the ending quote unquote villain other than death, the way he died was pretty like iffy, like a cherry picker. I mean, it could have been better. Overall, the movie also felt a little fast paced. It felt like as soon as somebody died, they went straight into the next one. It felt so like, oh my God, we gotta go, continue. And there are also some stuff that I find to be ridiculous. Like when Wendy shows examples of how pictures predict the people's death, like when they use Abraham Lincoln's and 9/11 and stuff. I was like, all right, like we're pushing it. It's the examples weren't great. I found that to be really ridiculous. But I did like the aspect of using the pictures to kind of figure out how said person is going to die. So I did think that was cool, but once again, some of it was just a bit ridiculous. I did not really care for Wendy and Julie as a sister bond. It just felt so bland and like I don't really care. Still to this day, one of my biggest gripes with this movie, one of the biggest things that I hated about this movie is one particular scene. And that scene is when Wendy is in her room and Julia is leaving the room. And when they're talking, you see a zoomed in of Wendy. The camera is zoomed in into her first, and then from a far distance, you see Julie. I hate that camera angle. That scene is so annoying. I don't know why. I just hate that scene so much. The way it's captured, it feels wrong, and it's just like I really hate that. That's just me. I don't know if you like that. I just didn't like the way it was zoomed in like that, and then having Julie from afar. That wasn't cool with me. I didn't really like that. The ending I feel was kind of weak too. I enjoyed the train sequence, but the fact that it was a premonition and then it just cuts to black and we're just like, okay, so the premonition happens, but we don't have to see it. We just get a black screen. It's just like it didn't have to be a second premonition. It could have just been the ending with the train situation. But obviously, there's also stuff going into it because that wasn't even the original ending. The original ending has such a bad test screening situation that they had to reshoot it. You could tell they had to reshoot it. They also had plans to have Kimberly be in this one, and that couldn't work out because of scheduling. So there's a whole bunch of things going into it to the point where I can't really blame them. But I do feel like the train ending was cool if only that was it and not the premonition. Overall, Final Destination 3 is a really fun movie to watch. At 4, they're going to hate me. Final Destination 2. Final Destination 2. I know this is a fan favorite, and a lot of people still to this day is uh, traumatized from the premonition of the highway and the logs. That is a big thing, and that movie is so iconic that people, when you're driving, people like to avoid the log trucks because they're so traumatized from this movie, which makes this movie so great. However, other than that, there's a lot of things that I was like iffy about this movie. The characters were fine, like Kimberly was fine. I did not really care for everybody else other than Officer Burke, Kimberly, and obviously Clear Rivers, who is our legacy character. And one of the things that I hate about this movie is the way they treated our legacy character. The way she dies is so like whatever. And I feel like for such an important character like that, for her to die just like that, it was like the the hospital room exploding and her just dying and you see her body flying away. It's just like, I mean, I guess I didn't necessarily hate it, but I do feel like for a character that important, the death could have been better than what it was. I also think the way Kimberly was going about trying to stop people from dying was a bit off too. Like her picturing birds and stuff, and it was just like everything felt so like half-assed, especially when Kimberly just takes forever to get to the people. It feels like she warns them at the last second, and then Pearson just dies. So it's like, I don't know, like the bird situation with the whole fucking thing. It was just like, it was so, all she yelled was birds, birds. So it's like, what does that even mean? So it's like, it, a lot of it is just like Kimberly figuring out things, but then it takes forever to get to that moment. And then when it happens, the person dies and we're on to the next one. One of also the other things, I understand this is a Final Destination movie and we have to have death be, what death wants to be. But one of the scenes that I think is just ridiculous is when Eugene tries to kill himself and he takes Officer Burke's gun and he tries to shoot himself and it doesn't work, even though when they opened the gun, it seems like it was a full round. It had 6 bullets in there. And I felt that was kind of ridiculous. Like, oh, wow. So Death controls that as well. Six tries to kill himself, and he used every single one, and the bullets did not go, and the safety wasn't even on. So I felt like that was like a little bit like, all right, come on now, let's be a little bit real. One of the things I did love about this movie is how they connect Final Destination 1 to 2, because it seems like the way they go about it is that the people in Final Destination 2 were supposed to die around the time as the people in Final Destination 1 died, But since Alex and his crew cheated Death, it kind of stopped what Death's plans were for the people in two. So now Death was working backwards, and I think that was a great spin on everything. Now we gotta go from backwards from the last person that dies in the premonition all the way to the first. I thought that was a great concept. And obviously having Tony Todd the GOAT being as always being in the movie, Tony Todd being the GOAT, him explaining that new life can defeat death and that's how they go about it was cool. And the biggest problem I have with this movie is the way they treat Alex. Alex is the OG. He is the first person to have the premonition in in the Final Destination franchise itself. Not what happens in, we'll talk about that movie later on, but as of the franchise itself, Final Destination 1, Alex is our main guy. And the fact that he's not even in this movie is fucked up. I guess it was like maybe contract dispute or whatever. Even if that's the case, the fact that you have him die in the way he does is crazy. He dies off screen, and we find out it's because of a falling brick. This man Alex was working his ass off in Final Destination 1, avoiding everything possible. You mean to tell me a falling brick is what ends him? Come on, you could have picked something else. That's one of the biggest things I hated about this movie. What's that? But overall, Final Destination 2 gets this spot because it is a fantastic movie. Other than the situations, obviously, it's not a perfect movie, but neither is any of these movies. And one more thing before we go on to the next one, I do think the climax of Final Destination 2 was a bit weak. When Kim has the little vision of a doctor, I think her last name was Kalarjian or whatever, when she has the vision that the doctor is doing something to somebody, the first thing she thought of was that the doctor was killing somebody in the vision. You mean to tell me that out of every possibility, you thought that the doctor is like helping death by killing said person? That doesn't does that make any sense? I feel like that was such a stupid thing to do. Obviously, she was trying to save somebody, and we find out later on she tries to save Kimberly. She's the one that brings Kimberly back from the dead. But it's like that's not the first thing they thought of. They thought immediately that she was trying to kill somebody. Why would a doctor like that was at number 3 we have Final Destination Bloodlines. I really adore this movie. This movie was fantastic. This was almost my number 1 on this list. I really did enjoy the fact that they changed up the concept of, all right, we have a premonition from centuries ago, from decades ago. And now they're using the whole family tree as a way to do it instead of it being a group of friends or a group of people. I thought that concept was great. Stephanie, as the main protagonist, she wasn't the best. I think that's was one of the things that held it back from being on my number 1. But I do think the whole aspect of it, of her being the crazy one now and nobody believing her, and then people start to believe her after they consistently dying immediately, and people keep dying and dying, and then they're like, okay, I'm starting to believe you now. I thought that aspect was fantastic. The kills were, for the most part, awesome. They did rely on a lot of CGI, and that was kind of one of the things that lowered it down in this list as well. It's like the CGI was a bit too much when they didn't need to add so much. But the CGI was fine. I think the biggest thing that really holds this one from being number 1 was the climax. The way Stephanie and Charlie die, it felt like they didn't know what to do with them. It was like, how are we gonna kill these people off? And they just thought of something like that. And the train coming off the tracks and getting them was fine, but it just felt like it didn't work in that setting for some reason. It just felt off because it's not even a train that kills them; it's the logs that's on it. So it's just like you went from having the trains come at them, they stopped it, thought they was cool, and then the logs come at them, and that's how you kill them in a CGI way too. That was a bit off for me. I didn't really like that. But other than that, this movie was fantastic. I love this movie. And at number 2, we have Final Destination 5. I know a lot of people aren't going to like this, but let me tell you why. Overall, I think the story is the best out of the whole franchise. These characters actually have meaning towards them, and they actually feel like human beings that are actually going through something. Some of them are kind of like whatever characters, but I do like the fact that we actually have situations going on. Like the fact that Sam is having problems with Molly because she wants to break up with him, not because they're having problems. It's just that he has dreams of being a chef and he has a chance to have an internship in Paris, but Molly doesn't want to hold him back. That's why she breaks up with him. She doesn't want to hold him back for his dreams. And them having that situation going on, meanwhile trying to survive from death trying to kill them, I thought was an excellent way to go about it. And also Peter being like the big antagonist in this movie, the way he slowly progresses and gets into an anger set, I thought was fantastic. The way Peter comes from being a loving boyfriend, and then when he sees his girlfriend die, he goes through some grief and doesn't know what to do, and he's just really going through the motions. And then when he finds out the way to defeat death is by killing somebody who wasn't supposed to be on death's list, and that gives him a motivation. And he also gets mad at Sam because Sam tells him that in the vision, everybody died but Molly because he saved her. And then Peter's like, wow, so Molly's life was more important than Candace. And that's when a whole situation goes down to the point where Peter's like, okay, I'm going to kill Molly because I don't think she would deserve to be alive if Candace couldn't be. So I think having that be a situation I thought was great. This was the best set of characters that have a real good storyline that progresses. Meanwhile, death is still coming after them as well. One of the things I didn't like during the bridge premonition, the CGI near the end, like when it comes to Sam's death in it, was pretty like lackluster. Other than that, the rest of the premonition was cool. Overall, Final Destination 5, I think, has the best story throughout the whole franchise. And obviously, at number one, we have Final Destination. Final Destination setting the groundwork for the franchise, I think deserves to be in number one. Alex Browning, I think, out of all the protagonists, him being such a like freak of like I don't know what to do. He's trying to figure out Death's plan. I think he's the only one that really tries his best figuring out all the seating and realizing that's how people are dying and how it skips somebody once that person interferes and it goes on to the next person. I thought was the best concept throughout the whole thing. I think Alex overall is a really good character. I'm consistently trying to figure out Death's design and how we're gonna go about this. I think makes him a great character, especially when he once he realizes how Death works, he tries to get himself in a safe spot where he can't die, and he tries to dummy proof where he is and try to survive. Except for the falling brick into, still can't. I still don't understand how that happens. Well, the premonition was fantastic. I love Flight 180. The kills were awesome as well. The only thing I will say negative is I didn't like the fact that during Todd's death is literally the only time where Death try to covers his tracks, which makes no sense to me. Literally throughout the whole franchise, that is the only death that Death is covering his tracks, and I'm like, why? Like, if you were gonna introduce this, that should have happened a couple more times in the franchise, and it never does. The whole introduction to the concept of Death doesn't like to be cheated was amazing. Also, the cast of actors, they killed it. Evan Sawa is fantastic. This movie literally just screams 2000. I think overall, when it comes down to it, I think Final Destination is the best out of the whole franchise. So that is my ranking of the Final Destination movies. What is your rankings? Do you enjoy my list? Do you hate my list? I understand if you don't like it. I get it. Let me know in the comment section below. This has been the Slasher Bachelor, and I will see you in my next video. Love you guys.